I had the pleasure of visiting Dorney Park earlier this summer, and I got to experience 7 out of 8 of their amazing coasters. And today, I'm going to be ranking them all up from worst to best. Starting with the roller coaster that I didn't ride, this is a Zamperla Kiddie Coaster, and I've ridden a bunch of these, so I basically knew what to expect, so I just skipped this one. It's basically just the same as every other Zamperla Kiddie Coaster, a curved drop, a helix, and then a turnaround and back into the station, and it just loops around over and over. Most of these rides are pretty jank and can be uncomfortable, so that's why it's in last place. Coming in at the number 7 spot is the last, I would say, bad coaster at this park, and this is Wild Mouse. It is another cloned coaster. They have one of these an hour and a half away at Hershey Park, and honestly, this one doesn't really have much going for it. It's basically just a much jankier version of a lot of Wild Mice by Mack rides. Also, this thing looks like it hasn't been repainted in like forever. The color scheme isn't that great, so it's not really that appealing to look at. And overall, the ride experience just is not good. It's very uncomfortable. And this is, like I said before, the last really bad roller coaster on this list. Coming in at number 6, we have Thunderhawk, and this ride was pretty mediocre to me. It had some pretty rough spots, but it also had some great airtime moments. This ride is a century old, so that might explain some of it. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid roller coaster for its age. The rough spots are kind of annoying, but they're not that prevalent on the ride that it makes it a horrible ride. I'd just say it's a pretty mediocre wooden roller coaster overall. At the number 5 spot, we have Possessed, and this ride is a lot better than Thunderhawk, but it doesn't compete with the other 4 roller coasters ahead of it, in my opinion. Many other people will place Possessed higher on the list, but honestly, I thought it was pretty repetitive and kind of boring. Sure, it had some great moments, and it is very enjoyable in terms of the launch and the twisted spike, but because they don't have the holding brake working on the vertical spike, it kind of just feels forceless in that part of the ride, which is why I feel like it deserves the number 5 spot. Hydra is one of the weirdest, yet one of the most enjoyable B&M Flores coasters I've ridden. I love the wide variety of elements and forces that this ride provided, and also this thing is still smooth as butter after 19 years of operation. The zero-G roll and corkscrew really popped well, and that first element after the drop was very strange, but I really enjoyed it. Also, this was my first roller coaster with a JoJo roll out of the station. I've since ridden Copperhead Strike as well, and I have to say this one is very good. I do think Copperhead Strikes is a little better just because of the lap bar restraint, but this one still feels very strange and disorienting coming out of the station. Overall, I really liked Hydra, and it was a very solid B&M Floreless. Coming in at number 3 is Dorney Park's newest roller coaster, Iron Menace. This is their first ground-up edition since 2005, and that was Hydra, which I just went over. I really loved the sequence of elements on this ride, and it had some pretty good forces for a B&M dive coaster. One thing I will say about this ride is that it just opened, but it already has a rattle to it. Right before the brake run, there's a nasty jolt, and there are a few other occurrences during the ride where the track kind of rattles a bit. I don't think it takes away from the ride experience too much. It's just very strange and kind of uncomfortable at times. But that's the only bad thing I would say about Iron Menace. The rest of the ride is great, and this ride actually does have a nice theme and a nice station to it. Also, it ties Dr. Diabolical for the world's steepest dive coaster at 95 degrees, and overall this ride is great other than the rattle. Coming in at number 2, we have Talon, and honestly, if you told me before I went to this park that I wouldn't have Talon at number 1, I would be shocked, and honestly, I'm still shocked that I liked another coaster more than this. But this is honestly one of the better inverts I've ridden. I don't know, between this and Great Bear, it's pretty close. I would probably give this the edge to Great Bear maybe a little bit, just because I think the forces are stronger on this ride overall. I still like the sequence of elements on Great Bear a little bit better. All the inversions on this ride pop though, especially that zero-G roll and that Immelman. Both some of the best I've experienced on an invert. Also, that low to the ground turn really made me cray out. A very forceful element that I really enjoyed. But even though I really enjoyed this coaster, there's still one more coaster that beats it out. And that coaster is Steel Force. I was shocked when I got off this the first time, basically because this ride kind of receives a lot of hate. And all that hate is basically that the last couple bunny hills do nothing, and that this ride doesn't really give that good airtime. My favorite force on a roller coaster is airtime, and honestly, I was surprised by how much this ride actually had. The mid-course was not hitting at all, so we were just flying out of our seats on the last couple bunny hills. Also, that first giant camelback was very good, and it honestly felt like just a little bit tamer version of a 5-second floater hill. The helix, even though it looks very drawn out, and it kind of was, had very good views of the park and of trees, and of just a lot of things. It was a very enjoyable ride overall. I really like Steel Force. I honestly still can't really believe how much I really like this ride, especially since I liked it more than Talon, which honestly going in I thought for sure was going to be my favorite by a long shot. I didn't even think Steel Force would be in the top 3, but here we go. I guess it was just because I had very low expectations for this ride. If I went back, I don't know how I would feel about it if I went in with a little bit higher expectations, but for now, it is my favorite roller coaster at Dorney Park. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one.